Good evening, folks. This is my co-anchor. Say hi to the people, Mr. Me. This is from Cat. He's been making sure Mommy's okay all day. My co-anchor. So I promised you all a story. Rob from Entertainment and Star Wars already knows a little bit about it. And this is one of the things that really brought JD's case home to me, particularly about his finger and the damage to it. I'm not going to go into the whole story. I'm just going to go into what happened that particular night. I'm also not going to name any names either. I will say I was manipulated into the relationship not only by him, but also by his mom and his sister. So, let me go ahead and get into it. I'm going to tell you the story in defiance of the verdict today. I've told this story many times, so if I'm not too emotional about it, it's just because I have done it ad nauseum at this point. So, in January of 2014, I was with my ex and his sister. The mother had passed about 6 months before. During this time period, I had been doing pretty much everything. See, my ex was prone to grand mal seizures. He would have them back to back to back to back to back. So she had left and had been gone the whole day with that going on, leaving me with no phone in order to get in contact with anybody or be able to contact help should it be something that I was not capable of dealing with. And she comes back. And she was saying some very snippet comments to me. And I had had enough of her accusations. She never treated me well. So I went back into her room and I confronted her about the fact that at that point, even though I did not have a job at the time, that I had been the one who had been cleaning the house, taking care of her cats, making sure that everyone was fed and that everyone was able to eat. I was the one singularly taking care of my ex through grand mal seizures. And while she was out spending her mother's life insurance money on clothes, going to the mall, just running all over the place, meanwhile I was being left to take care of everything else with no phone. I just basically slapped her with a little bit of reality and left the room. Now, my ex and his sister had an extremely volatile relationship, especially on his end. It was told to me when I first met him that he was autistic. So I believed in the beginning, well, this is just a male version of me. And that's what it seemed until I moved in with him. But that's another story for another time. Turns out he was extremely volatile, flipping tables, throwing things, screaming, and physically attacking his sister. Well, I said my piece to her, and for me, that was the end of it. But he was agitated and throwing a fit, and he just would not leave me alone. He kept asking and asking and asking and asking what went on back in that room. I think he was looking for an excuse to attack her, to be at all honest. So I told him, because I was getting tired of being bombarded. Well, what he then did was he flew into a rage. He grabbed one of the swords that was near the mantle, and he marched back into the back room where she was with his sword. So I was not about to allow that to happen. So I chased after him. And when I found him back there, he was on his back on the ground with her above him, with the sword above her, right above her neck. So I rush in there, and I am trying to get the sword off from around her neck. I tried to be safe about it. I was trying to pull it away from him by the scabbard. It was still half scabbard. But me getting involved with the scuffle, getting into the middle of it, I got my hands all cut up. She screams at me to call the cops. Again, there's no phone. It's 3 a.m. at night. So I am running in my pajamas and my socks, banging on the neighbor's door at 3 a.m. in the morning in order to call the cops. Thankfully, they let me in and allowed me to do that. He ended up going into jail, and she went to the hospital. Well, obviously this is enough. After several years of chair flipping, the animals screaming, the throwing of things, the threatening, having to dodge and weave, basically to survive, I had had enough. So I packed my little backpack with a couple of things of clothing. The last thing that I had of my dad left, he had passed in 2008, which is part of what made it so easy for the family to manipulate me. And a hardback copy of The Lord of the Rings, and I put that all in my backpack, and I was done. I was just done at that point. So I was getting everything ready, and she comes back in from the hospital. Here I am packing things. My hands are still bleeding. And instead of being grateful about the fact that I had intervened and that probably saved her life, she started to scream at me. Scream at me. And she was calling me a thief and calling me a whore and yelling at me to get out. So I grabbed my coat and my backpack, and at this point I have no way to contact anyone. It's early morning, and I just yelled, "Have a nice effing life," slammed the door shut, and started walking. So I'm crying, my hands are bleeding, and I just keep walking. And finally, I reached a gas station about 7 miles out. And I'm in sandals and socks, folks. It was real cold. It was in the middle of January. There was some ice on the ground. By some miracle, nothing happened to me during that walk. And I ended up taking the taxi to my granny's. Thankfully, I was able to get to my mom safely. The next day, my mom and I called because we wanted to pick up my stuff. I had an entire apartment full of stuff in their garage. I wanted to take what I came with. And she threatened to call the sheriff's office on me. So here I am with my bandaged hands. The last few pictures I had of my dad before he died. Things of sentimental value that I've had around me since I was 5. And I ended up having to let them go. And I never pressed charges. I could have, but I didn't because I knew what they would use on me. They were going to use my autism on me. They were going to say I was delusional. Even though I saved her life, I knew she was not going to back me, the sister. So, hearing about his story with the missing finger, it brought me back to that night. Had I not run out when I did, I barely missed for daring to intervene, getting stabbed through my middle. So guys, this is why I'm on his side. That's just one incident. That's not getting into anything else I have been through, and it's been a lot. It's been a lot. I'm fighting this fight, him getting this win, no matter how long it takes, is a victory of all of us real victims that have gone through similar things. Folks, AH made a mockery of us. A complete mockery of us. She made mockery of that night. A night I don't think I will ever forget. Ever forget. And that just doesn't sit well with me. So I wanted to tell a real story. And, I mean, that's all I got to say. I do appreciate your time today. As always, this is a small channel, so if you could, please hit the like button and subscribe. I am going to leave the comments off of this one, because this story is extremely personal, and it's not the full story. I don't feel comfortable with going over the manipulation, the falsehoods, and the lies quite yet. Maybe some point down the road. Thank you all so much for being such wonderful advocates. Let's keep fighting. Thank you, and have a good one.